Welcome to the Success for Life podcast. Again, today I'm going to be discussing with you some of the most important things of being successful as an entrepreneur, some of the roads you have to travel, and some of the most important things in dealing with family success and failure as an entrepreneur. Really enjoy this podcast. I think I have some really interesting tips for you that will help on your road to success. As always, for any people that are a part of our family, you can always go to our website, nucsportsmag.com, and use the code Football2016 for 50% off for life. You can also check out, we recommend highly that you check out Acorns for being able to financially invest. If you check out this podcast and the notes in this podcast, you'll see my direct link where you get $5 directly put into your account from Acorns for your financial success. Enjoy this podcast on being a successful entrepreneur, the important things, and dealing with the failures and successes of that fact, and how to handle that with your family. We look forward to seeing you soon. Enjoy the podcast. Here for the Success for Life podcast with episode number 9. This is going to be me discussing one of the most important things in business, in entrepreneurship, the success and failures of entrepreneurship and what to expect, and then also what to actually approach your family on, and to help you from a family standpoint, understanding what success and failure and entrepreneurship and all of it really, really means right now on the Success for Life podcast with me, David Schuman. So I'm going to start with success and entrepreneurship. There's some really important things to understand. Number one, entrepreneurship is not something that is just a word that people use to define people going out on their own. They are not freelance workers or editors or writers or freelance consultants. Entrepreneurs are a step beyond just freelancing. Freelancing might be a toe into possible entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is really the act of setting up your own business, taking on the responsibility of the success and failure of that business, essentially becoming your own CEO, marketing team, operations team, depending on what kind of business you set up. You may be the sole person operating that business and handling everything, and you may be a part of a team depending on what funding you have, what business you're in. So there's some really important things to understand about entrepreneurship. I guess 1A on this is you have to be in it for the long haul, okay? And not necessarily tied to the actual business that you launch, but the act and the body of entrepreneurship, you have to be in it for the long haul. Success running your own business, running your own enterprise, for most people, the 99% of people, does not come fast and swift. I started NUC Sports really way back in 2002, where it was originally a speed, strength, and agility camp, and I was doing it literally out of my truck. I set up a camp for speed and strength, and thought that I wanted to be a trainer of athletes and helping them get faster and stronger and more athletic. And I set up a camp at my old high school, Saddlebrook High School, and set that camp up there back in 2002. And the real interesting thing about it is that camp actually had great success. It had over 100 athletes in it in its first year. But it wasn't until I set a proper pricing model that it was able to attract people. The year before, a year before, I had actually gone and set up a camp that I offered for free for athletes, and no one signed up. So what I learned from that was that if you have a service and you have something that people want to respect, you do have to charge something for it. Now, once you become well-known and you're trying to generate leads, you could certainly, obviously, go the free route, and that could certainly generate you leads. But people respect a business that has success and has value to the person's time. Okay, so as an entrepreneur, I started that back in 2002 and really learned from there what it would take to try and begin to grow my business. So I was training athletes, and I was going everywhere, all over the Northeast, training athletes. And I'm not even talking about why I got into it, which I could certainly discuss, but I was training athletes all over the country, literally, running camps. I started running a camp out in Reno, Nevada. Brought my father out there for that to help with me because it was really just me. I was doing football players, softball players, all at speed and strength out of my truck and generating actually a decent amount of income, at least to live day to day, from that. But it was not yet a business. It was really one off here, one off there. When I decided to open up a facility, training facility, was my first step into really understanding how entrepreneurship works, generating clients on a regular basis, and I utilized some really interesting tools to do that, which we'll talk about in further podcasts. But I was one of the first people to go and develop a social media presence way back before that was even cool. I developed an internet presence, which I learned from when I was in college and graduate school. I had built my own website. Actually, I had developed a term paper writing company that I put on the website and had, back in 1998, had writers all over the country. So I had the bug back then, developed an internet page, taught myself HTML, and slapped it up there. And now you don't have to worry about that because there's so many tools out there. But going back to the campus, once I developed the facility in 2004, after I got a certain amount of traction with my camps, I opened the training facility, and I was responsible not just for myself, but people that I began to hire that worked at the front desk, the marketing promotions, the partner I brought on, so on and so forth with respect to the business. So that success, the small steps to success, it took 2 years to get to that point. And then even though I was in the training part of the business, as I began to evolve that, I realized that for me, the partnership was very successful for a long time. But as we ran our first event under a separate company in 2005, which ended up being the National Underclassmen Combine, we ran that event and had 140 athletes at it. I realized that there was a business model associated with football and evaluation. And so that's really what became the focus of my business, was football and evaluation. And as it goes today, we've really evolved into a lot of different things, from camps to all-star games, a lot of different areas. But identifying that opportunity and focusing in on that product, we had focused in on the training product that got us a certain amount of success. We were averaging somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 a year in our training facilities, which generated modest income. But it wasn't until we got the camp part of the business that we started to really generate a huge amount of income and got the business where we were at over $1 million. So, and in 2011, which took basically from the time I actually started 9 years, 2011, we were named Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies. And now, as an entrepreneur, we've had a couple of years of flat business, and now we're adding new products and solutions that we realize we've maxed out certain parts of our business with respect to camps and have to revitalize and come up with new products. So the evolution of the business, the success of business, is critical that you continue to invest and reinvest and reinvest and reinvest again if you're dedicated, and think about the business as a long haul process. And it's not something for most people that will, yes, you see on Facebooks and Twitters and that you can hit instant success, and there is that opportunity. We started with zero money, absolutely no money. I had no money, built it in a multi-million-dollar business. Okay? First with training facilities, then with with the camps and recruiting events. So investing in our business was huge. And how do we do that? We learned as we added new products. So what we would do is we would try different products and different types of events over time and figure out which ones were good and which ones weren't. And we had a lot of failures along the way. And we had a lot of financial setbacks along the way. And it's important for you to enable you to handle those setbacks by focusing on reinvesting in your company and reinvesting as much as possible in the people that could be successful. The other thing that I found was really critically important, I learned a lot of these lessons the hard way, was number one, if you're going to be in a partnership, you have to figure out what is the right partner. You just can't come to somebody and say, let's partner, and if you're not, your values aren't aligned, because one person may want to be very big in the business and blow it out, and the other person may want to keep it small. So before you go into a partnership with someone, I firmly believe you have to be aligned value-wise. My actual recommendation is that if you do partner with somebody, that you always have controlling interest, because of the fact that if there is a conflict, the person who has the larger ideals can win, and sometimes a partner is really good at the work or the operations and not as good in the marketing, promotion, seeing the big picture, and keep moving to the big picture. Because with the big picture, you have a certain area of ambiguity on a day-to-day basis, but the people who are doing the work don't have that ambiguity. They're task-oriented, while the CEO or founder can be strategic-oriented. That doesn't mean that you can't do tasks. You have to do the tasks. As an owner and a founder and a CEO and someone who has had employees I still to this day do all the marketing for my company, and something that I've had a huge focus on. But you want to try and bring competencies where you're not. Sales, maybe, if that's not your strong suit. But I do think as an owner you have to be able to do sales, but operations as well. So, and finding then the employees that can help, or the consultants that can help, or the temporary workers that can help you, they have to be aligned with your values. And if your values, you value, like for me, I have a very hard time with people who leave before they finish the task for the day, or leave before the job is done. And now the job is obviously always ongoing, but I have a problem with someone who's able to leave and sees that imaginary whistle at 5:30 and taking off when they haven't finished what needs to be done, especially the mission-critical issues. Okay, so it's important to find employees that are aligned with you from that value standpoint. You're going to have people that come in that aren't aligned, and it is critical that you identify those people, figure out, I've heard many people that are speakers say, fire fast. That doesn't always work for the entrepreneur. Sometimes you need somebody in the now or the near term that can help you that may not be a long-term success person for you. So you have to figure out who you need now, who you want to get on board for the future, and figure out as you go through each stage of that process as an entrepreneur. Dealing with family, I always feel, has been an issue, and the mindset of helping people in your family understand where you're coming from. As an entrepreneur, you're going to go through many, many highs and lows. There's no other way to put it other than you go through many, many highs and lows. There are going to be times where you're financially very successful, and the reality is there are going to be times when you may not be successful at all. And there may be times where the person who is part of your family and your immediate family, extended family, may understand what's going on and may not. Okay? So I think it's critical that the people in your life understand the road that you're on and get aligned with that value set that you have, because ultimately you have the long-term goal of being successful and helping them get to where they want to be in life. The difficult part of entrepreneurship and running your own business and running your own company is that most people get a job, they work for a company or an agency or government, and they work their job, and their job is important to them, but it is not mission critical to their life. Entrepreneurs should be in a business that is mission critical to their life success, and meaning that they have the passion about it, that if they weren't doing that business, it would eat at their soul. And it has to be that way for an entrepreneur. Now, I firmly believe, there's two schools of thought. Can you work and be an entrepreneur at the same time? You have to do what you have to do in order to survive for your family. But as an entrepreneur, the best case scenario is that you have a situation where you can pursue everything you need to pursue as an entrepreneur and dive in. That will ultimately lead to the greatest amount of success. Now, for myself, there's been times when I've had to hold down or make money in other ways in order to continue to be successful, to make NEC Sports operate and go. There are many years, I coach football since 2002, and there are many years that in the fall, because our business is, a lot of it is seasonal in the spring, in the fall coaching football, that extra stipend definitely did help out because I was pouring so much money into my business, and that enabled me to live in the fall. So it's important to understand that. When you get a family, wife, girlfriend, and kids, or you have to be able to help them understand the process, that ultimately this will be great for the family. And I always say this: if you fail as an entrepreneur and you decide at some point that you just couldn't tackle the right situation and you failed and you couldn't get to where you want to be and you're tired of that, you can always go get a job. You can always use those skills that you had as an entrepreneur to be successful in anything you do, because no one who works for a corporation understands what it's like to be an entrepreneur. There is no other way to put it other than, if you work for someone else, you don't understand what it's like to work for yourself and build. And until you do it, and I've heard so many times people give suggestions to entrepreneurs, and yes, even CEOs of large corporations don't understand what it's like to build something from scratch unless they themselves were the founder. And that's a really, really important thing to understand, that the people in your life hopefully will understand for you that being an entrepreneur requires someone who understands that process. It definitely helps the success of the entrepreneur if everybody is on board in your family with you going after your dreams. Now, for me, that means not sacrificing activities I want to do with my family, but it does mean every other part of the time I'm thinking about, how can I make my business successful? What can I do to make my business successful? What are the attributes to growing my business? I think of my business as an enterprise. I love when people pigeonhole, and most people who don't understand, I love it because they pigeonhole you, and they'll say, oh, NEC Sports, you guys are you guys run camps. And, if I'm over and I'm chatting with somebody that I know does not understand business and running their own business, I won't even be in the deep dive into all the depths of what I'm trying to do. But NEC Sports is, as of now, a sports organization and consulting company. That's what we are. Now, there's a lot of things underneath it: recruiting, camps, showcases, seminars, podcasts, all kinds of different things that can generate revenue, apparel, that we sell, that can go and generate revenue for our business. But we really are focused in the sports and consulting area and developing things from that standpoint. And football happens to be our main focus, but I don't think of it as my end goal focus. That's important. So we're taking care of some near-term things. Family-wise, it is critical that you find people in your life that understand what you're doing, because there are going to be episodes and that are willing for it. If people need the Maserati from you and expect the Maserati from you because you run the business, they are complete fools. Those people are complete and utter fools, okay? They will never understand when the business struggles, and they will never understand when the business has wild success. They only think because you own a business that you should be rich. And that's the most naive, it's the most ignorant thing that any person could ever imagine when discussing ownership of a business. There are highs and lows, just like anything else, okay? And it's important to understand as an entrepreneur that you have to be willing to bear that risk. I think of myself as someone that takes calculated risks. I go all in on my projects, but I do some research and investigation where I think something can succeed. I think you can't go in blindly. I think that's a flaw. People say they want to be an entrepreneur because they got some freelance money for something and they go in blindly without doing research, and then they fail miserably. You have to know what field you're going into and what the competitors are and what the landscape is and what your product offering is and the differentiation of that product. And if you can't articulate that differentiation in a very, very 1 to 2 sentence and hopefully in a couple of words, you're going to have a problem continuing to do that in the marketplace. So that's really important. And then finally, failure. How do you handle failure? Well, the most important thing to an entrepreneur is to not just learn from your successes, but to also learn from your failures. And what do I mean? Success ends up breeding success. So you're trying to replicate that success in as many different avenues as you can. Maybe something you learn, how you develop the product, how you marketed a product. Those are ways that you can become successful, and you want to replicate that. Your failures you learn from what did succeed in that failure and what failed in that failure and where the mistakes are. And you have to reverse engineer to understand what you did. You've got to go through those steps, and you have to have that Q&A with yourself, even if it's down on paper, to understand what you did to be successful and what you did to fail in that case. And failure is critical. And how you handle failure is critical. One of the analogies I always use in coaching football, having coached football for so long, is it's one of the other things that I'm passionate about. And I always say that you can have 1 or 2 bad drives in the game, but you can't let 1 or 2 drives become a quarter or 2 quarters. That's how you lose the game. So you can have a failure or 2 failures, but you can't have 5, 6, 7 failures. It goes along with your hiring. When you hire somebody, you can have one person here and there be a bad hire, but overall you have to have good to great hires all the time in order for your company to be successful, because you'll need those people that you have working with you. So you have to learn from those failures. You also have to learn from your failures from the people around you and the naysayers, because the first thing that everyone says to you when you fail, okay, that's outside of your company, is, well, maybe it's time to move on. Or, you tried that and that didn't work well. You have to be strong enough and strong-willed enough to believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing to turn the failure into a success or recognize the next opportunity. And I hear it so much, and this is the reality of entrepreneurship. You listen to so many times to podcasts of people who don't talk about reality. They just say, yes, you fail, and you go right back. Well, you have to be able to handle the outside world. You have to be able to handle your own immediate family at times, and you have to continue to develop products and solutions that can be successful. And I believe in, if you see a failure, sometimes you fail fast, sometimes you fail a little bit slower, but you have to learn from your failures and what to do next. Okay? So that concludes today's podcast on success, family, and failure in entrepreneurship. As always, go to the Success for Life podcast. You can see us on iTunes. Please comment, like, love, give me some ratings, some stars, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Success for Life podcast. I'm David Schuman, signing off.